Are you worried about the nerfs tomorrow? What if I told you this build here won't be touched because it's so out of the meta that devs won't think twice about it? What if I told you it's also capable of clearing up to T100 Nightmare Dungeons? Pretty interesting, right? What's up, amigos? So today we have this super fun frost grenade build. Now there have been a few suggestions and comments of previous builds I've done to test out cold imbued builds, caltrops and grenades, and I personally enjoy grenades more. So before we go any further, if you all enjoy the content, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more daily Diablo 4 content. It's always greatly appreciated. And don't forget, pre-patch drops tomorrow and I'll be reviewing and possibly updating my other guides on the channel as well. So I will go out and say that this build has mandatory aspects. Now let's go over those real fast. So the first one is the frostbitten aspect. This aspect has a chance equal to double our crit chance to freeze chilled enemies hit by our grenade skills. So what this means is that because we have a 36.8% crit chance, this doubles, meaning we have a 73.6% chance to freeze enemies that we hit with our grenades. On top of that, we also deal 15% increased crit strike damage against frozen enemies. The second aspect that we absolutely need is shared misery. Now what shared misery does is gives us a 50% lucky hit chance to spread our crowd control afflictions. So what we aim to do here is actually spread our chilled and frozen afflictions, to all surrounding enemies, including distant targets. Also, I actually found a new chess piece today. It's a miracle. I have sacrificed a little bit of health to gain the extra layering between the distant and close enemies, the flat damage reduction, and I also rolled total armor. Sucks that it was 3 days before season start, but at least we got an upgrade. So the third aspect that we absolutely need is the Icy Alchemist. Now what this does is gives us another lucky hit modifier, making it so when we damage an enemy who is chilled or frozen with a shadow imbued attack, it has a chance to release an explosion that deals extra cold damage to all surrounding enemies. Now we mix this with shadow imbuement explosions and everything just starts exploding for massive amounts of damage, because yes, this damage from the Icy Alchemist actually scales with all of our extra additives and multipliers. And yes, I do have a bugged aspect, which I am now just realizing. This says it's supposed to do 947 to 1723 cold damage, and it deals 552 apparently according to my tooltip. Maybe it's a tooltip bug, who knows? So yes, again, these three aspects are absolutely mandatory for the build to work. While we are going over gear already, let's go ahead and check about our other pieces. So on our helmet, we are running Might. This gives us the 20% damage reduction when we're using basic skills. We are using Puncture as our basic skill because we run combo points. This is a constant 20% damage reduction. It's amazing. I use it in every one of my builds. So I did get this new helmet the other day, which I kind of teased on the channel to give a hint at what I was going with. The sad part is that for this build, it's not necessary to have double imbuement ranks on your helmet. Ideally, if you want to push higher tier content like T100s, you want the max life, cooldown reduction, armor, and then an extra, whether it's shadow imbuement, cold imbuement, or even basic attack speed on your helmet. For our gloves, which is the frostbitten gloves I showed earlier, we have pure damage, attack speed, crit, twisting blades, and dex or all stats. All stats would be ideal to hit breakpoints in your Paragon. On pants, we have the disobedience aspect. This is a must, I think, for everybody who wants to push any type of high tier key. Armor stacking is incredible. Armor is the best defensive layering you can get in this game, hands down. I finally rolled off of the damage after killing an elite and I got imbuement skill cooldown. I would rather have dodge or even increased armor instead when I'm pushing higher tier content, but these cost 5 million gold per reroll now, and I run out of gold. So other than that, I have the max life, distant damage reduction, and flat damage reduction. Penitent Greaves are pretty much a must-have in the build as well, because this is what we need to inflict chill to all surrounded enemies. So Crossbow. Now, I really do want to change this. I have been testing it. There have been people in my comments telling me that Blade Dancer is good. I have to disagree. I honestly think Blade Dancer is totally overrated. I think there are much better aspects to get the 100% increase. For example, I would much rather run Accelerating here. It's a lot of attack speed. When we crit, we have a high chance to crit. I think it's personally just better. Attack speed is so much more beneficial to Twisting Blades than the extra 15% or so multiplicative damage that we get. The stats that you want on your crossbow are crit damage, vulnerable damage, dex, and an extra additive like core or close enemies. So because I have Blade Dancers on here, on my other ring I am running Accelerating. I have the crit, vuln, and crit damage here. I really want to find a new ring, preferably one that doesn't have max energy on it, especially when you're pushing higher tier content. You want that max life, and this is exactly what I have on my other ring, but instead of crit damage, I have crit chance, vuln, close, and max life. Again, I just have not had any luck with rings. On our amulet, we are running Umbrus. This has % dex on it, damage reduction from close, ranks to weapon mastery, which is probably the best that you can get. The ranks to all imbuement skills, however, is something that, again, just like our helmet, isn't needed. I would much rather have % armor or even damage reduction from distant enemies. I would also really love if I could find a maxed out Umbrus, because it's really insane on an amulet. You have a 90% lucky hit chance. Now, that is the key wording here, lucky hit. There are a lot of people who I think they overlook the fact that this is a lucky hit modifier. It's not a guaranteed thing upon crits, but when we crit with a marksman skill, which is our puncture in this case, we have a 78% chance to grant ourselves a free Dark Shroud Shadow. And there are people that have been telling me that we don't need a point in Dark Shroud in our talent tree to proc to proc Umbrus. I don't honestly know if this is true. I don't know if it's a visual bug or not. But yeah, regardless, Umbrus is amazing, especially on Amulet, and rogues essentially have 7 skills. We don't need Dark Shroud on our action bar for this to work. So for our melee weapons, we are running Expectant here. Core, crit, vuln, and ideally, instead of the crowd controlled enemies, you would want all stats over dex. This is just to, again, help hit the breakpoints in our Paragon. And our offhand is Condemnation, because we run combo points, and I will die on this hill. I will say this again countless times. Condemnation is not a bad unique. So speaking of that, as you can imagine, for our specialization, we run combo points. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our skill tree. Now we are running a few things that we don't normally run here, and that's just to more quality of life and synergy with the build. So obviously we run our Puncture and Twisting Blades setup, we run Fundamental on Puncture, and we do run Improved Twisting Blades for the Daze effect. Max out Siphoning Strikes, max out Sturdy, of course, for the close damage reduction, Siphoning just for the leech. We max out our Weapon Mastery, and we do take a point in a concussive, we take a point in the trick attacks, because with this build, especially running grenades, which is smoke grenade, we are constantly dazing enemies and gaining the effects of everything, really. Now we are running a point in the rapid gambits, and this is actually pretty, and I've got this off of other creators, and I will admit that this is really nice when you're running a daze build. When you're running Penitent Greaves, this actually procs a lot, and you may not think about it, but you can evade a lot with Penitent Greaves, so it's nice to have that extra bit of movement speed when you're running high keys and when you're just trying to position. So we have some options here. If you want to run points in the Dark Shroud, you can either run Countering for the extra crit, or you can run Subverting for the extra movement speed. I actually have been running Agile. Using a cooldown increases your dodge chance by 8% for 3 seconds. This is huge defensive layering. I think a lot of people have been overlooking this, and this is something, including myself, I'm guilty of. So a flat dodge % increase, I mean, when people are dodge stacking even on pants and stuff, it's pretty nice. I have also been testing with Concealment for positioning purposes when I'm running higher tier keys, and having the option to freely grant myself unstoppable instead of running Shadow Step, where you have to target somebody with the spell to grant yourself unstoppable. So that is something that I've been testing out, and I have been trying to enjoy it. It is weird, especially for those rogues who are used to all the movement speed between dash and between Shadow Step. It's a different change of pace. Now, our main skill here is Smoke Grenade. This is our grenade. This is what makes everything work. Smoke Grenade is going to be our thing that we throw out to daze, to proc our concussive, to proc our trick attacks, to CC cycle everything. We run Enhanced Smoke Grenade, which is a multiplicative damage increase, and we also run Counter and Smoke Grenade, which is a lucky hit modifier, allows us just to reduce our cooldown of Smoke Grenade. So yeah, again, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if it's a visual bug or not. I'm going to continue putting a point into Dark Shroud because I don't know if it's a visual bug, if Umbrus procs it without or not. So 3 points in the Exploit, 3 points in the Malice. These are, again, just mandatory rogue skills, the increased damage to healthy injured, and of course the increased damage to vulnerable enemies. I prefer running a point in the Shadow Crash and consuming shadows when I'm clearing, speed farming, or whether I'm just, if I need energy, like I can always rely on Shadow Imbuement explosions and the kills what everybody is inflicted with Shadow Imbuement. So instead of blended, also, which I normally would run, we are running mixed Shadow Imbuement because this makes it to where we deal increased damage with our cold imbuement skills. We take 3 points in the precision imbuement, the increased crit strike chance, of course. With our imbued skills, we're running double imbuments. Now 1 point in the cold imbue and 1 point in the shadow, of course, but enhanced cold imbue is a lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable, but it's more or less just a prereq for this, which is a multiplicative damage increase for crowd controlled enemies. Double it if it's against frozen enemies. And speaking of frozen enemies, we run 3 points in the Frigid Finesse, which is just more multiplicative damage, increased damage to chilled enemies, but it's doubled against frozen. We take 3 points in the Innervation, the lucky hit modifier to help with our energy. 2 points in the Alchemist Fortune, which is just more lucky hit chance stuff, because we do have a lot of lucky hit modifiers in the build, so we want as much lucky hit chance stacking as we can. And then second wind, just more lucky hit chance when we spend 100 energy. Keystone passive of choice is Close Quarters Combat. If you see yourself not having problems dealing damage, you can always try to run around with momentum. We are constantly going to be gaining momentum stacks. This will give us another 20% damage reduction and movement speed increase. This is just something that you can play around with. All right, moving into Paragon. So I have spent 20 million gold respecing Paragon in the last few days, and I think I finally got a Paragon board that works with the build. That helps us with our normal flat, twisting blade damage, but also improves our imbuments. So I'll have a link to this in the description below. We're just going to go across the board and look at which board I'm choosing, which glyph I'm using. I'm not going to go in depth with everything, but starting off with the starting board, we're running Closer. Then we are going to Cunning Stratagem, and we are running the Exploit glyph here. Make sure to grab your armor nodes. This is the main reason why we took this board second, to have this increased armor here, and we have a finisher here for extra core skill damage. Second board we go to is Eldritch Bounty, and we do opt to take this legendary node just for increased imbuement damage. We take the combat glyph here. Next board we're going Tricks of the Trade, and we're using the Diminish. I haven't even finished leveling this up yet, but I have been seeing people recommending to use this node on certain builds, especially in the Tricks of the Trade build, because it will just skyrocket our armor values, and it'll also give us a ton of damage to elites. So yeah, Diminish here, and once we hit the bonus, we also take 10% physical damage, reduced physical damage from vulnerable enemies, which is massive. And then our final board, we are running Cheap Shot, and we are grabbing Control here. So yeah, again, I'll have this linked in the description below, so you can all just check out the full Paragon board. And yeah, thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more daily Diablo 4 content. And until next time, amigos, take care.